Good morning, my fellow Americans. How you doing today? Good, I hope. I hope that, everything is going well for you. But I want to talk to you about the police. Nobody wants to talk about them, but we need to. The defunding of the police is backwards. It's not being, I'm not saying it's not being done right, because it's being done right. But why in the world would you want to defund your protection against criminals and crime? Now, I understand bad cops are everywhere, okay? But in truth, it's a handful where our police are many. And only a small amount of those go off the deep ends and do stupid stuff like kill people. Now, officers have had to kill people who were trying to kill them, and that is called necessity. Now, if I was a very wealthy woman, I would put all the funding that our police have lost back in place. That would be one of the first things that I would do with the money. But then I would put a special allocation of money to go to prosecuting criminal cops so that they can't work anywhere else as a police officer. And every police officer is becoming aware of how dangerous the United States is, for them as well as it is for us. But their hands are being tied, and this is wrong. Now, like I said, I would put special money towards prosecuting criminal cops. Cops who use unnecessary force need to be retrained and temporarily suspended without pay while they go through their training, or at least a reduced amount of pay. They should be able to support their families, but they need to go through proper training. Now, in Texas, I saw the training camps, and they were more military than they were police. But in Texas, we have a lot of cartels. In Texas, we have a lot of Islamic nut jobs coming through the country. They come in through Mexico and have been for I don't know how long, probably my whole life, all 60 years of it. But I would not defund my own protection. And our children are not taught how to deal with a police officer who confronts you. Now, like it or not, a police officer is your authority figure, and your parents are too. And your local government's above the police. So it's all connected here. It's just one straight line. There's no lot of dots. These are communities that were designed to work together for protecting everybody. Yeah, there are some corrupt ones. People too, because they go out and commit the crimes. And I always thought, our prisons are overloaded. Watched, what was the senator's name? My goodness, I can't think of his name. He was a senator for a very long time. I think he retired. I never hear about him anymore. But he owned the majority of the prison systems. Owned them. He wasn't just an investor. He owned these prisons. So keeping them maxed out was to his benefit, because it was all tax dollars that paid him. So to him, this was very beneficial. And people were going to prison for crimes they never should have even seen the inside of a jail cell for. I know a lady in Lubbock that got pushed around by this cop regularly. He was a young guy, new on force pretty much. But he was always harassing her over she jaywalked, or she was still in the walk zone after the light had changed. She's an old woman, but he harassed her anyway. She ended up spending 3 days in jail over a jaywalking ticket. And when that jaywalking ticket was turned in to the captain, why he didn't investigate this a little bit more, because this is a misdemeanor. You can't go to jail for this. You pay a fine. You don't go in front of a judge and swamp down our judicial system with misdemeanor crimes that come with a penalty already. Now, if she argued the penalty, I could see, hey, I didn't do this. He was just harassing me. But that captain should have taken it upon himself when he saw that it was due to go in front of a judge, and started questioning not only the person who was ticketed, but the officer. Because harassment, I've had it, yet I still stand up for the cops. I've never been harassed by an older cop. I've always been harassed by the young rookies. They get a big swollen head because they think they've got some authority. And now they want to show everybody who's boss. But they just want to show the average person, not the gang dealer, not the gangs, not the drug dealers, not the gun dealers, not the human traffickers, and the pedophiles and all those. No, not going to bother with them. They're too tough to test out your authority. You're going to harass average citizens who've done nothing wrong. I know a guy who goes to, he's already graduated, thankfully, from Texas Tech. And he received several tickets in one day for jaywalking because traffic was stopped up and the cars were parked over where the people cross into the intersection. It was just, and it's always that way downtown by the Tech Institute. So, people were used to this, and so were the students. And so they did cross wherever they could find an opening wide enough to walk through. And this still happens today in Lubbock. But one guy was ticketed 6 times, going from class to his dorm, back to class, and he walked it. Most students do, or they get a bike. But the traffic down there is so awful, and it's not, cops don't ticket the people that pull into the walk section and are stopped because there's car, and they don't ticket the people in the cars that are sitting in the intersection holding up traffic from having a decent flow. Instead, they're picking on people, these college kids. Ridiculous. If I ever saw a cop in Lubbock downtown issue a ticket to somebody holding up traffic because they are stopped in the intersection at a red light, and the car, they can't back up because there's a car right on their tail. So, no. And listen, guys, you get into an accident, I don't care how small it is. If someone pulls in front of you and causes you to rear end them, you are not automatically at fault. And in over 75% of those cases, it's insurance fraud at work. And they're going after your insurance. So make sure you dispute those claims and make sure you get an officer to write out a report. Because if he doesn't write out a report, you have no way to show that he communicated with them and you, and here's the facts of what happened. And by whatever marks are on the vehicles or injuries, if any, like in my son's case, he had a woman pull in front of him and slam on her brakes in the middle of the intersection at a green light. He managed to just bump her. No damage on his car, no damage on her car. Well, he got a call from his insurance. Guess what? That woman's claiming there's severe damage to her car and that there was an injury to a 12-year-old little girl or whatever in the back seat. And there were no injuries. Now, there was an officer right over at the gas station my son kept trying to get the woman to pull into so they could get out of traffic and out of harm's way. She didn't want to do it. He said, "We move over here." She kept arguing. He gave her his information, but did not get hers, which means she most likely had no insurance. And so they get off into the gas station. My son sees a police officer who's watched this whole thing happen and says, "Well, how about we make a police report so I can get your information." She threw a holy fit. A holy fit. Got in her car and drove off. And my son, not thinking clearly, just flustered, did not go and get the police officer and ask him to make a report about what happened. So that if this woman made a false claim like she did, he had protection with the report, showing what the officer saw, showing what happened between the interaction between the two members of the car. Well, I told my son what to do and how to handle it, because he was just blown away. He says, "Mom, what do I do? This woman's even claiming there was injuries and that there's severe damage to her car." I said, "Well, did you take any photos?" He said, "No, and neither did she." And I said, "Okay, this is going to be one of those claims that when it hits the insurance company desk, they're just going to go, 'Oh, shit.'" I said, "Stephen, you and I have been through this. When you got rear-ended by a semi-truck who tore up the back of your car. We went through this. You know the right way to do it." He said, "Mom, it's 103 degrees. I've got the kids in the car, and I hardly have any gas. I couldn't stay there long enough to do anything. All I could think of was trying to get the kids out of the heat and home where they had some cool air and water and some food, because they hadn't even ate that morning." They were had taken his wife to work, and he was on the way home. And I said, "Well, honey, you're going to have to contact your insurance company yourself. Don't wait for them. You contact them, and you tell them your side of the story. You tell your insurance company." She cannot back up what she's saying because there's no police report. Now, she can come up with thousands of dollars in medical bills and say they're your problem. But if you contact your insurance company and you tell your side, they're going to dismiss this. Show them pictures of your car and where your car bumped hers, and show there's no damage, not even a paint smudge on your car, not even the black rubber on your car, nothing. I said, this is protection for you. Otherwise, you could be looking at a lawsuit for $20,000. He said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, and then you got to get a lawyer to fight it." So, you got to watch out. Your cops are invaluable to you. Don't just treat them like animals who can kill you at any moment, because the majority of them are not animals that will kill you at any moment. Now, you can pretty much judge when a cop is having a bad day. And then instead of saying to the cop, don't take your bad day out on me, why don't you show a little compassion just for your fellow human being? Officer, I understand that you're under a lot of stress right now. I'm sorry if this really caused any inconvenience for you. Yes, I was speeding. Why is that so hard? Most speeding tickets are valid. In fact, I don't know anybody who ever got a ticket that was for speeding that wasn't valid. But you don't want to take responsibility. Why? Because it hits your budget. And so now you want to just say the cops are harassing you and bad. This is not reality, people. Defunding your police is the worst thing you could do. Supporting your police through your own behavior helps him do his job 100 times more efficiently. Now, my husband had an accident a couple of months back. Okay, he drove off into a culvert. Well, he didn't drive off. He was reaching for something, didn't realize his hand went with him while he looked down. He hit the culvert and back up onto the road. But it destroyed the front end of the car, totaled the car basically. And a police officer came up because, of course, my husband can't drive off. It's in the middle of the night. Thankfully, there's not a lot of traffic, so no other cars were involved. But they have to call a towing company and get it out of there. Well, the officer smelled alcohol on my husband. And my husband didn't lie. He said, yes, sir, I was drinking, but I shouldn't be over the legal limit. I should be good because I waited before I started my drive home after I drank. And the officer said, okay. He passed the field sobriety test until it came to the blowing part. He failed. And he got arrested for a DUI. Now, yeah, that killed our budget. Oh my God, it did so much damage to our livelihood because my husband got fired for a DUI. He was a driver, and you cannot have drivers with DUIs. No company is going to insure that. So you have to start thinking intelligently about what you're actually doing by defunding the cops. Now, my husband is paying the consequences for his action. I think they were a bit harsh on him. He's almost 50 years old, and it's his very first DUI. He's never had a DUI before. Never. And I think that they gave him a year's probation and court costs and what have you. But I assure you, my husband is not going to repeat that offense. And not because of anything I say. It's because of how harsh the penalty was. Now, granted, I think he should have maybe got 6 months at most, and alcohol and drug classes, which he already did. He's done all his classes. He's done everything that he should do, and he's killing us. He's paying his debt to society through his fines and legal fees. So, but it was, instead of complicating the job more for the police officer who was being decent to him, my husband was decent back. And that is the most you can ask for in an interaction like that with the police. Instead of going, you have no right, my rights. My husband went, I know the law, I'm stupid, so here we go. I'm going to go to jail. And I'll call my wife with my head hung down in shame, which he did. Baby, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I can't believe that. The apology was as genuine as I've ever heard one. So I want you to know, defunding your police is not benefiting you, not helping your community. But keeping your police a part of your community is just as important as funding them. Because especially with illegal immigrants running rampant like raccoons with rabies throughout our country, we need them. And now Kamala Harris wants to defund the military. Can you imagine what's going to happen when we have no armies, we have no Marines? Can you imagine what's going to happen to our country? And you want to say Trump's wants to be a dictator? He's not the one talking about defunding the American self-defense system, our military. Now, I don't approve of everything the military does. And I understand that some of the things they do, they have to keep quiet. There will come a time for us to know about it, but while it's in early development, they can't let us know about it, because they can't let our enemies know. You understand that? You really want your military defunded too? If you're thinking about voting for Kamala Harris, I guarantee you she's going to defund the military. I don't want this. Those are our safety nets. Now, I have had a raid in my home. And I met some bad cops during that raid. But I'm going to tell you, what we got busted for was a misdemeanor. That their snitch, as they called it, I didn't, not my husband either, had told them there was all this stuff in the house that wasn't there. And they tore apart the house. So I have been through a raid. And they did not pay a dime to fix anything. They had to come out of our pocket. And even though my husband got a misdemeanor charge, they kept everything they took out of my home. I had a little snake charmer, this little 410. And it was actually child size. Not even full size. Not illegal to own, even for a felon. Okay? And my husband was no felon. But the gun wasn't his, it was mine. They took it. They said it was lost. It never made it into the, whatever, where they hold your stuff that they take from you. Evidence locker. They said it wasn't there. Somebody took it. I think I know who. And I hope the karma stuck with that thing. So if you ever use it, it blows your fingers off. Because that's what you deserve. Anyway. I am a gun owner. I will always be a gun owner. And I wish that they would come out with a biometrics weapon that no one else can use if it doesn't have your DNA. Now, they talk about having that technology and they want to give it to our military, which is vital, if you ask me. I think it's an absolutely genius idea. But what's it going to matter if they defund the military? I think they should also do the same with police weapons. That only the officer the weapon is assigned to can be used by him or her. Now, I know I made this video very long, and I do apologize. But at the same time, I want you to understand there's no future for Americans without our police force and without our military. Alright, guys. American Granny out. Remember, Granny loves you. She only wants you to have the best of America that you should have.